unoona paanopinda ari kuuya kuzokupa title deed kuti pawakagara pasaiva netitle deed yekhadhi remusangano.
Hallelujah.
Mutuvi tipewo mutuvi, haachadi kuti pane mutuvi kwanzi ndewe next door. We want to correct that. Resources for everyone, land for everyone. Vanhu vawane ma opportunities ne dignity munyika mavo.
Hallelujah. Mwari ndiye munoziva zviri muhana dzavo. Vanenge vanyepa Mwari ngavagware.
This election has been one unique election. It has been fought more in the courts, even before the actual polling takes place. Now we have over 100 petitions that are before the High Court over how the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission managed the nomination court. Now the Zimbabwe Election Commission is accused of various omissions. And those who are arguing are saying that in the manner in which the nomination court was structured, there was an attempt to ensure that many who wanted to exercise their right or rights as candidates, presidential, parliamentary, or council, were denied the right to so do. But yesterday afternoon at the High Court, a ruling was made, and that ruling was in favor of the UZA President, Elizabeth Valerio. She is now on the presidential ballot. Now this is, and this will always be, the Free Talk. With me, your host as usual, Dara B. And we are talking politics, people, and power ahead of the August 23 general elections. Now join me after this break as we talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom on here, HSTV. Now, welcome back on this, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. With me, your host as usual, Dara B. And joining me to have this conversation is none other than the lady of the moment, the only woman on the presidential candidate among 12 candidates, Elizabeth Valerio, the leader of UZA. She will be looking to get the people's vote so that she can become potentially the first Zimbabwean female president in 43 years. Let's cross over and have a conversation with Madam Elizabeth Valerio, aspiring presidential candidate. Welcome, President Valerio. First of all, congratulations. You've been fighting a battle to get yourself on the ballot paper. Now tell us, how has that journey been?
Thank you for the congratulations. Great relief at the moment, knowing that I finally have the opportunity to contest in this election. It's been a long journey for us. I think everyone knows that UZA is a 2-year-old party, or a young party, but for every single day of that 2 years, we've been preparing for this election. And on June 21st, when we went to file our paperwork at the nomination court, it was rejected. And that was on the basis of our proof of payment having not been accepted by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. So it's been.
So you had actually paid, and you brought in the proof of payment, and they refused that proof of payment.
That's exactly right. I paid on the 21st. We provided proof of payment, bank stamped proof of payment, but unfortunately, because the funds weren't reflecting in the bank account of the Electoral Commission on that day, during the moment when we were submitting our paperwork, they rejected the application.
Amazing. And you have eventually been vindicated. What did the judge say when he delivered that ruling?
It was a very brief ruling. And we're waiting for the official ruling. Actually, we're still waiting for them to hand it down to us. But essentially, it is saying that the ZACC has to put my name on the ballot as a presidential candidate.
Do you think that, because ZACC is supposed to facilitate for everyone to participate in an election, either as a candidate or as a voter, do you think there was some deliberate effort to try and keep you off the ballot?
You'll never really know what happens behind the scenes, but it is disconcerting to us as a political party. 73% of our candidates, more than half of our candidates, were rejected. So I'm only one out of many that were rejected from UZA. We would have had many more candidates on the ballot. Currently we have candidates in 61 constituencies. But we would have had many more MPs, we would have had many more councillors contesting in this election. So we don't know, but it's a little saddening or challenging to face an electoral environment whereby so many of your candidates are rejected after paperwork is approved, but all on the same basis, proof of payment.
And you did transfer this money into ZACC account?
ZACC is holding money right now for MP candidates who are not on the ballot that were paid for by UZA.
And they try to return that money?
We currently have other court cases, so mine was one of 30 court cases. So we are hoping that justice will take its course in all of the cases. Certainly the presidential candidacy was very important to our party, but every single MP candidate represents a group of constituents, and we want to make sure they have the opportunity to stand. We're forming a new government. We need our MPs to be in government. And so there are still pending cases right now. We don't know what the outcome will be, but we pray for justice again.
So far, you're the only woman or female candidate who's made the list of 12. How do you feel?
I feel grateful, first of all, that I did have a judicial system I could go to, and that they heard my case. So I feel tremendous relief. There was a lot of expectation as a woman who is running for president and also is leading a political party. There's so many questions that emerge about why didn't you make it? Did you fail to pay? And yes, the odds were against me already. ZACC came to all of us as presidential candidates with this just unreasonable $20,000 fee that was required to be paid. But beyond that fact, I also feel just absolutely elated. I'm overjoyed, mainly because it's a milestone, I think, for women, to know that if you stand your ground, if you really do continue to pursue what you believe in, it is possible to break through. So I've made it onto the ballot. I'm excited and hopeful that Zimbabwe will now also take the next step and deliver a win for the first woman president in Zimbabwe. That is my hope, and I'm confident that we can do that.
Do you see yourself going beyond being on the ballot paper, just beyond being a candidate?
I see myself as the next president of Zimbabwe. It's time for us to have something very, very different in terms of leadership. And when I say different, it's the approach that we are taking as a political party. What we are going to be delivering for Zimbabwe is a better future. We don't want to see a Zimbabwe that continues for another 43 years down the same path that it's on right now. So I do see myself, I'm not just contesting for the sake of being a woman on a ballot. I'm contesting because I believe that I can and will win this election.
President Emmerson Mnangagwa has declared that this is a landslide victory for him. And the Afrobarometer actually released a survey, and your name doesn't appear there. So don't you think you're wasting your 20,000 plus the money that you're going to use in campaigning?
First of all, it's not a waste in any way. This is a commitment that I've made because I believe in the future of our country. I believe that the next 5 years are so crucial. If we do not take back Zimbabwe for Zimbabweans, the next 5 years will show us a very different future. We've got people exploiting our country. I've gone on record of saying this many times. We cannot afford 5 more years of exploitation in this country.
You say people, don't these people have names?
I think that there's been enough media out there that reveals Zimbabweans are very well informed. They know what's happening in Zimbabwe. Foreigners are coming in. They're getting the benefit of our natural resources, what should be benefiting the citizens of Zimbabwe. You will find that, you'll be surprised probably to know that many are even taking our land, whereas Zimbabweans do not have equal access to land. So this is a big issue to me. And I'm very concerned about what the future looks like for our country if Zimbabweans are not the ones that are being put first. So my commitment is to making sure Zimbabweans are at the center of our agenda. Zimbabweans are the focus. And we're going to make sure that we provide an environment where Zimbabweans can thrive, where we put them first in terms of opportunities. I also, just as I look at this, when you ask about how do I feel that this also gives women an opportunity to realize that they also can and should participate in government. They have a role to play. We all do. If we're not represented on the ballot, women being the majority of our population, how will our issues be addressed? So I'm highly optimistic knowing that I can win this election because it's, you mentioned the Afrobarometer. I wasn't on that list of those surveyed because I wasn't on the ballot. I would be very interested in a few weeks. We've been highly disadvantaged by not being able to campaign for the last almost month or so. But I would be very interested in knowing in a few weeks what that same survey would look like, given that I am now on the ballot.
Now you speak highly and say the land issue is of concern to you. ZANU-PF has been saying that it's been addressing this land issue, this land question. You say it has not. Can you care to explain?
I think we, as Zimbabwe, we went through a very turbulent time with the land redistribution process. I'm not trying to reverse anything that was put in place, and there are implications to any decision any government will make. My main focus is to ensure that land access or even the opportunity to have a home as a citizen is more fairly and equitably provided for. And so that is really my contention when I see foreigners coming into Zimbabwe and being given priority in terms of access to opportunities that should really take advantage of the benefit of the expertise of our Zimbabwean citizens. I'd like to see Zimbabweans put forward first before we see others.
Are you saying they are not being put forward first?
I don't believe so. I really don't. I think that at the end of the day, the Zimbabweans are an afterthought. They are appeased in many ways. As you come towards election, people are being told that there are title deeds coming and all these other things. But it's to appease the Zimbabwean citizens. I think Zimbabweans really need to start looking at the track record of all those that are in government. Because remember, it's not just one party in government. And see what they've done over the years. And then start to really think, what impact am I getting as a citizen? What benefits am I really getting from having a government that leads this country? Think about the simple things. The education that our citizens are getting, the access to just a decent life, basic human rights, things that we're supposed to get ordinarily. So we're saying as the United Zimbabwe Alliance, we want to have political leaders who are accountable, who are going to ensure that we advance our nation and advance the people within our country.
I want to draw your attention to the economy. Now, our government has said that the economy is taking a turn to the right direction. And you say it's an unimaginable to have 5 years with the same guys because the economy is tanking. Now, give us why do you say the economy is tanking?
Speak to an ordinary person on the streets. You know, I'm not concerned about what a few individuals who are benefiting from this country are experiencing. I want to know Gogo Kumusha, like the old woman living in the rural areas. What is her life like? Is she getting what she should be getting? Some of our elderly in this country right now don't even, you know, they've worked years and years and they still don't even have, you know, the benefits of the work they've done. Pensions are non-existent in our country. The majority of our you know, employed are not actually getting a wage that is sustainable. So if you really think about the income earners, the person that should be considered a middle class person, half of them are struggling just to pay rent at the end of the month. They don't have a home that they can say, this is my home.
Did you see a banner recently which was written, civil servants smile all the way to the bank?
Again, it's interesting that as we go towards elections, all of a sudden there are things that are being done. But I speak every day to people in the civil servants, and they are not living a life that I can say is thriving. You know, these are people who are struggling to pay school fees today.
Are you saying Tulingwe is lying that civil servants are smiling?
Well, they may be cashing in on some money that they've been promised now, but I don't think that they have a secure future and that they have a life that they can look forward to. And if you speak to them directly, I don't think anyone is saying my life is now good, because they're still driving on potholes. They're still getting back to houses that don't have taps with water running. They still don't have, you know, I'm being told that electricity is now consistent. We still have blackouts. We still do not have consistent electricity supply. So no, I don't believe that they are smiling all the way to the bank. They're happy and relieved to have a little bit of money back in their pockets, but that's not going to sustain them for the long term.
The Zim dollar has been performing well on the market. Is this not a sign?
Let's hope it continues to improve. Look, I wish all the best for Zimbabwe. So I'm not here to say that we are trying to criticize anything and everything that has been done in the current government. What we're saying is it's not good enough, because the ordinary citizen in Zimbabwe does not have the life that they should. So when young people are still turning to drugs out of frustration, they're not getting jobs. The industrial sector is collapsing. I mean, even if you look right now at, we don't have half of these mega companies that we used to have in Zimbabwe. So until those things are truly rectified, and until our government is servicing our citizens efficiently, when I talk of basic services that they should be able to get access to, being able to walk into an office and get your ID without challenge, we're not doing right by the citizens.
But the government has been doing this. Now people have been getting birth certificates for free. They've been getting IDs. Now passports are easy to come by. Is this not a reason for you to be supporting the incumbency instead of trying to remove them from office?
I don't believe that my job here is to highlight only shortcomings. Where things are working, we are always happy that things are working. I don't believe that our society is working efficiently and that enough has been done. And again, I say a lot of what is done is always pacification or pacifying the people as you get towards elections. So again, when I start thinking about you know, the life that a person is living, yes, they might be able to get a passport, but can they afford it? Do they have a job that can pay them sufficiently? Are there enough jobs in our country to allow them to go and get that passport? And sadly, right now, most people are clamoring to get passports so they can leave our country, because we don't have jobs in this country. So we haven't fixed the whole problem. There are some incremental, you know, progresses that we can say are taking place, but let's fix our country. Let's make sure Zimbabwe actually is back in its, you know, in its proper position as a leading nation on this continent. Even as a global leader, because we've got everything it takes. The wealth we have in this nation is beyond what most other countries could even dream of. We are not doing enough. The government is not doing enough.
Are you saying the government has failed its people?
definitely is failing its people. I think, yes, there may be there may be readings right now stating that this party versus that party is going to succeed. But look at the gap. The number of people who have no confidence are saying, I won't even vote. I have no opinion at present. So yes, the government has failed its people. And if you speak to people in the rural areas, you speak to people on the streets, it is not a secret. Zimbabweans are not happy. They don't see a future in a positive light. And I think that those who are maybe looking to support and continue to support the existing system are doing so because they're afraid they'll lose what they have.
I mean, this US dollar, Zim dollar, that's the debate. As president of this country, what would be your best foot forward?
We have to continue to, by the way, we've got a very comprehensive manifesto document that we've been working on, and we are releasing it in phases, but we address some of this. But we have to continue, I think, to keep the stability by using the US dollar, but ultimately we need to stabilize our nation enough to where we have a currency of our own. You can't compete in a global economy without your own currency. So we aren't looking to make radical changes immediately, but we will ensure that as a new government, as president, I will also ensure that we go through a process of working with the experts within the sectors. So if you're talking the financial sector, we have a brain trust around the world and in Zimbabwe. Let's get everybody on board in coming up with a solution for these problems. But ultimately the goal is to get our own currency. We can't continue to say we are operating with this currency versus that currency. But let's keep the stability for now.
Madam President, what are the issues for you in this election that should be at the most and at the forefront of the people's concerns?
I think ultimately it comes down to when you think about the life that Zimbabweans are living. They want the opportunity to also have a decent standard of living. They want an education for their children. People work so hard to come up with these school fees, and they want an education. So they want teachers in the classroom. They want good quality classrooms. We need to make sure that every child has the same opportunity. So access to education is a huge one, I think, for everybody, but also in particular for me. I want to see young people having access, even at no cost, in primary school, but where it's world class, not the educational system that we see today. We are also losing citizens daily because of the poor healthcare system. So we need a healthcare system that works. We need hospitals and clinics that are functional. We need access in places where some people have to travel long distances just to get to a doctor, or they die along the way. So we need to put an end to that. But most importantly, I think people just want to be able to stay in the country, have a good job. And so we need to restore industry. We need to get out of the way as government. We need to make sure that industry can function, that stakeholders in the industrial sector actually are heard when they come up with solutions. Because ultimately right now, whether or not you're a brilliant entrepreneur, or you have a business idea, you're encumbered along the way as you go to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. So we need a government which is, of course, providing the framework, the policies to uphold standards within our country, but we don't need a government that's involved and got its hand on every single aspect of our society. Government needs to get out of the way.
You're saying that this government is overbearing? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, anything you do, there's some sort of, some level of red tape or government, element that you've got to face. I'm in the tourism industry. The number of licenses you have to go through just to be able to operate as a safari operator or as a tourism operator. But I mean, anything you do in Zimbabwe, there's just too many restrictions. So let's enable, citizens to do what they want to do. Let's create a free environment for everyone. I think also just ensuring that regardless of where you live in Zimbabwe, you're given the same opportunities. I know there are certain provinces in Zimbabwe that are marginalized. I've seen it firsthand. I live in Matabeleland North, and I can tell you, we don't get a lot of what is provided in other provinces. When I think of the maintenance of the roads, we're always the last to be thought of. So let's make sure every single country, every single province is treated the same, that every citizen is given the same opportunities. That's really important to me.
Do you think that there's any province that has got better roads?
Well, that's a whole nother story. But I you know, in all, you know, sincerity, I do feel that as I've been to certain provinces, there are some that are left behind. And it's in every sense. You look at voter registration. Certain provinces get more information and access to voter registration than others. I can tell you that for a fact. So there's a lot of work we need to do to make sure that we really create a free and fair country for everybody.
People have raised concern around issues that talk to corruption. What is your stance on that? Because some think that all these things that you are talking about, that are issues, the schools, the health, and the jobs, could be easily created if corruption is stopped.
You've hit the nail on the head. I think for Zimbabwe, we need to face that fact. I've been saying, you know, for years that, you know, if we get rid of corruption completely in Zimbabwe, maybe then you'll start to see local government working properly. Maybe then you'll start to see the schools functioning properly, because everyone knows that at every level, in every aspect of your life, at some point you are being exposed to corruption. So we have a zero tolerance for corruption. There is the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, which is in place and it's constitutional. And so the first place we're going to look as a government is at that particular commission. It has to do its job. So we need to audit what they're doing and make sure that they are given the ability to function properly without interference, without politicizing it. We need to make sure that it's actually functioning properly. So that, I think, is at the core of it. And we have that in our manifesto. It is you know, front and center on the first portion of our manifesto.
The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission is led by a judge of the High Court, Lois Matanda Moyo, and you appear to me to say that you're not happy with the work that they're doing.
I'm saying that we need to audit what is happening within ZACC, and we need to make sure that it is given the ability to function properly.
Do you think it's not being given that ability?
We have to get to the heart of corruption. And so rather than creating parallel systems to solve these problems, let's work through the mechanisms that are in place in our constitution. So I really believe, as a future president, we need to really go to our constitution and uphold that document. And that's part of one of the biggest problems we have. So the separation of powers in our country needs to be addressed, right? And so when you ask questions about ZACC, ultimately what I'm saying is, let's make sure it's a truly functional entity, and that it has no interference, that it's doing its job properly, and that it's also got sort of the accountability needed to ensure that it can get rid of corruption in our country. It can be done.
Okay. So far, what is your verdict on the efforts that have been put in the fight against corruption? Is they yielded anything that you could write home about?
I think there have been many cases that have come to the fore, and we're not seeing the prosecution taking place. So I think there's work to be done. I can't say that I'm happy with the outcome, but again, we need to go through a proper audit, understand what's happening behind the scenes, and then make sure that they are capacitated to do their job.
Let's look at your campaign. How has it been going so far?
Well, I was not able to campaign openly as a presidential candidate, but we've been, for all intents and purposes, campaigning for a long period of time. I mean, for 2 years or so, we've been on the road. I personally have been with citizens. I could say that it's gone very, very well. The citizens have received us so well, and people are, they're hopeful and excited that there is something different. I think ultimately, everyone keeps seeing this as a two-horse race or something. I've heard that many times from people. I don't believe that anymore. UZA is coming in as a new political party. We're in 61 constituencies. We have candidates on the ballot. We are a new government in the making. So I'm optimistic, and our campaign going forward is going to be incredibly vibrant and exciting, because now we have a presidential candidate on the ballot as well.
I almost got disappointed, Madame Vali, because I was one of the first who sat down with you,
yes,
and you told me that you were going to be on the ballot, and finally now you are there.
I am a highly spiritual person as well, and I do believe on some level sometimes it's beyond your own. I could say I should have been on the ballot on the 21st of June. but maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe this is the time. It's very clear to Zimbabwe now that there has not been a woman on the ballot. I think now people realize that I've brought something very different. So I will never regret anything. I'm glad that we stood our ground and that we continued to press forward. And thank you. I'm glad that you were, hoping that I would make it onto the ballot. So I hope I can count on your vote at this point. Will you commit to voting for me as the first female president in Zimbabwe?
Madam President,
you put people on the spot all the time.
Madam President, what is always a secret? But Madam President, we have seen mega rallies.
Yes.
We've seen mega launches, and we have not seen yours.
We're a very different political party. You know, I see these rallies, I see the photos, and oftentimes I also wonder, are these people at the rallies because they want to be at the rallies? And are they truly the people from that particular area that are at those rallies? So you can do a lot in terms of aesthetics. What my focus, what our goal is as a political party, as UZA, is to meet the citizens, to tell them who we are. I want to have conversations with real people. I want them to understand our manifesto, to know why they should vote for us. So yes, we may have rallies very soon, but we are going to do this in our own way. I don't think that our benchmark or our measure of success is what the other political parties are doing. They've done it for all these years.
And they've won all these years.
Well, yes and no. Remember, many of our past elections have been very highly questionable, right? The outcomes have always been disputed. And so at the end of the day, I think we as UZA, we want to work in our own way to ensure that we continue to engage the citizens, and that is across the country, at the constituency level, at the poll station level. We want to make sure that we are actually having sincere conversations with people.
Across the world, Madam President, I have never seen a single political party that has not held mega rallies, that has won an election.
That may be the case. Maybe we'll be the first, but ultimately I think with Zimbabwe, for us to win this election, we need to go about it in a very different way. We will have rallies. I'm not saying we won't, right? But my benchmark of success is not how big my rally can be in comparison to another political party. My benchmark is how many citizens have we been able to reach? How many have heard our message? How many truly understand who we are and who our candidates are? That's our primary objective at this point.
Now, let me look at your government.
Okay.
How do you look to structure it?
There's a lot we have to work on over the coming weeks in terms of, I don't want to preempt some of what we are working on already as a national executive and as a political party. I'm going to leave it at that. I think we'll be sharing a lot more over the coming weeks, but we definitely want to have a political or a government that is going to be diverse in terms of its composition, that has genuine ability to lead this nation in terms of their background, their experience, that is representative of the people. But I'm not going to go into all of the specifics. We are looking and really thinking about what that should look like.
Let's talk about size. How big, how small?
Well, we're not looking to have a huge government, if that's what you're asking. I think that we need to work more as a country on efficiency and making sure that what we are doing as a country, is not redundant. And so when you look at the service delivery and some of the work that could be done, there are ways to create more efficiency, but also bolster your economy by making sure that private players can get involved in some aspects of service delivery, for example. So I don't believe in a bloated government. I'm not one who's going to be sitting here and trying to see how best to expand government at this point. But what we want is a well-equipped government that is going to understand its mandate, and that is to serve the citizens. And I think that is going to be a very distinct difference between us and any other government that has been in place in Zimbabwe from independence. Our focus is going to truly be about ensuring that our government understands the role that they are playing. We will no longer have a government whose job is to, I think of, I could say a lot right now, but we want to make sure that government understands its mandate is to serve the citizens, to serve, right? Not the other way around.
Not to be saved.
Yes.
Let me get you dreaming. How big is your motorcade going to be?
That's not a big thing on my list of things to work on. I don't need a huge motorcade. I'm that president who always gets told by my party leaders, you've got to stop, walking the streets and meeting people and talking to people in shops. I want to always remain the president that is connected to the people. I will always make time to engage with citizens at all levels of society. So I'm not certain what the motorcade looks like. It's literally the last thing on my mind. Yes, I understand that a president comes with the need for protection and all the rest of that. What goes along with that. And so certainly I'll follow the advice of those who are responsible for making sure that the office of the president is protected. But I don't care how many cars are following me and how many motorbikes go ahead of me and how much noise I make in the streets. Sorry.
Yeah, let's look at your foreign policy. Who are your friends? Who are your enemies?
Look, in order to be able to create a stable economy, we must be able to engage with other nations. We must be able to create an environment where foreigners, foreign countries are looking at us as a potential economic partner. We've not been that up to this point, in my view, more generally, because the policies in our country continuously change. It's not a stable environment. There's so many challenges, even with regards to our financial sector, being able to get your money once you've invested in this country. So we aren't saying that anyone is our friend or our enemy at all. What we don't want is the exploitation of Zimbabwe. We want people who come into our country to also ensure that they are socially responsible, that they're going to do the right thing. Everyone should win, but the citizens, more importantly, are my focus. And I want to ensure that as people come into our country, they're also making sure that communities are transforming. I mean, I look at Hwange, where I live right now. We've got all sorts of foreign investment in our coal mining sector, for example. I'm not seeing schools improving. If anything, now we have increased pollution. We have roads that are worse than they've ever been. We've got rivers that are polluted. So let's make sure that our foreign policy encompasses the advancement of our nation and our people. And that is the bottom line for me. So if they are going to be friends to our nation, these will be people or countries who are concerned about making sure that the human rights of our citizens are paramount, but also that our country is also fairly benefiting. And it should be transparent, by the way. That is, I think, one of the biggest challenges right now. I don't know how much transparency we have in terms of what is actually translating to Zimbabwe when we are making these mega deals with all these foreign countries.
Amazing. You talk of polluted rivers, you talk of the roads going bad and the schools remaining, or actually infrastructure deteriorating. And when you talk of Hwange, mostly you have Chinese investors there. Sino-Zim relations have been looked at as exploitative. Do you believe that they are exploitative?
I don't like to single out any country in particular. I think those who have been given those opportunities are taking advantage of what they've been offered. There are several countries, I think, that are exploiting Zimbabwe and knowingly exploiting our country. But my job here is not to make, any one country. You might have sincere investors from China in this country who are trying to do the right thing. What we want in Zimbabwe is we want to ensure that it is for the benefit of our country as well, not just for the benefit of foreign nations.
Amazing. No, we would have loved to continue having this conversation, but I would want to hear from you, Madam. Maybe your words from your heart, as I normally do with all my guests. Words from your heart, as you address, as you look at the people in Zimbabwe. Just look them in the eye and tell them what difference are you, you know, we've listened to politicians, they've all made pledges. Citizens first, everyone has said that. Gutsarujinji, in other words, you know, from your heart, what makes you different, Madame Valerius?
Thank you. Well, thank you for this opportunity to be able to speak to the citizens of Zimbabwe. I'm someone who is maybe new to most of you, not having been a politician for very long. I didn't come into politics because I had an agenda. I came into politics because I had no choice, wanting to protect our country. I ask that any Zimbabwean citizen who is looking right now at our political party do their homework, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges. We are not actually doing our homework as Zimbabweans. Find out what I have already done. Look into the investment I've already made in this country, the schools I've worked with, engaging in education. I am a scientist, I'm a business person. I'm someone who has put myself completely into the rebuilding of this country. I believe that Zimbabwe will not progress until Zimbabweans take responsibility for building this country. And at the end of the day, it will take every single one of us. I've spent 24 months working to build a political party, to give you a completely different choice in terms of government and in terms of a political leader, a president that can lead our nation. Ultimately, it's now your turn as Zimbabweans to make the decision. Do you want something very, very different from what we've seen for 43 years? Or do you want to continue with what you already have? Think about the life that you're living. Think about all the citizens that we have that have left Zimbabwe, that can't stay with us anymore because there are no opportunities here. My commitment is to make sure that they come home, that we change the circumstances, but we need all on board to play a role in terms of transforming and changing our country. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Madam President, for being with us, and we want to congratulate you for staging that fight that actually got you on the ballot. Now,
Thank you.
I was in conversation with Madam Elizabeth Valerio, and she is running for president, and she will be on the ballot on August 23. Now, just before we go, I am going to cross over to what happened at the High Court, the joy, the jubilation, and the small interview that we had with Madame Elizabeth Valerio's lawyers and herself just soon after the verdict was delivered in court, at court yesterday. So let's just cross over to that.
It was all jubilation, smiles and handshakes at the Harare High Court, a sign of victory and satisfaction. A chance to fight just another day for the United Zimbabwe Alliance leader, Elizabeth Valerio, who went head-to-head with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission for its omissions and won.
We had appealed against ZACC's refusal to register President Valerio on the ballot paper. So our appeal was successful. So the court ruled that what ZACC had done was incorrect. So ZACC is supposed to take all necessary steps to make sure that she is registered on the ballot paper and be contesting on the election to be held on the 23rd of August 2023. So that is basically what is happening.
She now becomes the only woman so far to get on the presidential ballot paper after the High Court ruled that ZACC had failed in its mandate when it closed its door on the UZA leader allegedly for failing to pay her nomination fees within the deadlines. Although she had the money, the banking and payment systems in the country made it practically impossible to meet the commission's deadlines. Instead of embarking on the campaign trail immediately after nomination court, Valerio and her party were dragged into the battle to get on the ballot paper.
I'll say also that I feel like in Zimbabwe, it's time that those that have responsibility in certain institutions, particularly in our elective process, understand that there is also an element of, how do I say, ethics that you have to uphold. Let's make sure that in the future we are doing the right thing. As we speak right now, I have been vindicated as a candidate, but we still have 29 other cases. We have MP candidates who are supposed to be on the ballot right now and are not. So there is still a long walk for us, a long journey for us in terms of the legal process.
The fight is not yet over. UZA still has members of parliament who are still out of the race over a failed and failing banking system. The payment systems have hit a lot of other potential candidates who include Linda Masarira, who wanted to run as president, and 87 other parliamentary candidates in the MDCT who are also still out in the cold.
Well, I think for a long time Zimbabweans have been wanting to see genuine change in our country. We've had 43 years of a governance that is not taking us forward. And so this gives the citizens, the voters, who are looking for something very different in terms of leadership, the opportunity to make a choice. We could, on the 23rd of August, have a very different presidential candidate. Certainly a woman, but also our political party has a very different outlook in terms of our mandate, our manifesto, and the work that we are wanting to do. So we're going to be the first political party that will actually implement its party manifesto.
The August 23 general elections are a high-stakes game for incumbent President Emmerson Mnangagwa and main contender, Citizens Coalition for Change, Nelson Chamisa, whose political careers will hang in the balance upon loss. In Zimbabwean history, this election has been fought more in the courts than on the campaign trail, with other battle to stop former ZANU-PF Commissar Xavier Kasukuwere from standing as an independent presidential candidate unfolding in the courts. Joyce Zikiti, HSTV News, Harare.
Now, thank you and welcome back to the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. And I was in studio with, and still in studio with, Madam Elizabeth Valerio, the president of UZA, and she is promising something refreshing, something different. Now, Zimbabweans, all of us, we have a responsibility. This is our country. We should make decisions that move us forward. But this platform here, on this The Free Talk, gives you an opportunity to understand the leaders that are presenting themselves before you and for election. And it is our responsibility to ensure that you understand and you make informed and conscious decisions as you step into the ballot. We do not support any political candidate. We do not support any political party, but we allow all political parties to be heard on these platforms. And thank you very much, Madame Valeria Svan. sorry. Thank you very much, Madame Elizabeth Valeria.
Thank you
for joining us, and I want to congratulate you.
Thank you.
This is an amazing moment in the history of Zimbabwe, and that you did not give up is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. This is The Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation. Until next time, please vote wisely.